Okay, great. Well, hi, everybody, and welcome. It's really great to see you tonight. My name is Michelle Branch, and I proudly serve as the governance chair for United Way of Bay Area for the board of directors. Thank you so much for joining tonight. And thank you. We really appreciate your interest in volunteering with us, and we really appreciate your volunteer service with us and your leadership in the community. I am super delighted to see and hear that 45 people are here, so that's really wonderful. So what I'm going to do right now is give you an overview of our agenda for the evening and kick us off. But again, welcome and thank you. So first, our CEO, Kevin Zwick, will share a brief overview of United Way Bay Area, our strategic direction, and the importance of diverse volunteer leadership. Then I'm going to share a little bit more about our volunteer leadership structure and our current recruitment efforts. Next, we'll welcome the rest of our panel to share their experiences with our board and advisory council. And then finally, we're going to wrap up the discussion and offer you all an opportunity to speak with each of our panelists separately in smaller breakout rooms that we've organized. So I'm so excited to introduce Kevin Zwick, the CEO of United Way Bay Area. He joined as our CEO in July of 2020, and he's an impact-oriented thought leader focused on building a more equitable Bay Area where everyone can thrive. Previously, Kevin served as the CEO of Housing Trust Silicon Valley and is the founder of SV at Home, where he continues to serve as a board member. We are truly grateful for his leadership, and it really is my honor and pleasure to introduce him to you all today. So Kevin, take it away.
Thank you, Michelle. And boy, thank you all for being here. First, it's a real pleasure to be the CEO of United Way Bay Area at this time. And partly it's because of the board and volunteer leaders that I get to work with, like Michelle, who I've learned a lot from, who's done a lot of governance work for a lot of nonprofit organizations. So I can't wait. Wanted to tell you about United Way Bay Area, but for all of you to get to know Michelle and for you to get to know Anna and Jason later on, who proudly serve on our advisory council too. So again, thank you guys all for being here. Thank you also for taking time after work, 5:30 in my house right now. This is the time where we're trying to get dinner on the table. Who's going to take Daniel to soccer? Who's going to take Norley to ballet? And all of that, who's feeding the dog. So, but we did want to take this time because it's after work. And as we're thinking about the type of board that we want in the advisory council and who we want to have on the board, we want to be mindful of the fact for some people coming during business hours of work might be challenging. And so we wanted to hold this event after traditional work hours to make sure we had as wide of audience as possible. So for those of you who don't know about United Way Bay Area, I wanted to give a quick high-level context. So United Way Bay Area envisions an equitable Bay Area where all people have the opportunities and resources that they need to thrive. To achieve that vision, United Way Bay Area, our mission is to mobilize the Bay Area to dismantle the root causes of poverty and then to build equitable pathways to prosperity. We do this in a couple of ways. One, through our own initiatives, and then second is through policy change. And we focus on people's immediate needs, but also building long-term support in 4 key areas: employment, housing, financial stability, and meeting people's basic needs. And we do this holding close our core values of respect, integrity, accountability, and equity. So I'd love to give you just a few examples of the way that we've had impact together. In our most recent fiscal year, we connected over 76,000 calls or texts, people calling us or texting us through to the life-changing support they need through our 211 system. We connected over 80,000 individuals with free tax help, and that's helped deliver over $60 million in refunds and credits into people's households' budgets. And we also helped over 2,000 people make progress towards their financial goals through our Spark Point centers. And we're entering a really exciting time. We're entering 2022. And as you can see from my background, we're going to be celebrating our centennial year. So this is a especially exciting time to be a part of the United Way Bay Area community of support. Later this month, in the next couple of weeks, we're going to be proudly unveiling our new strategic plan, which we developed over this past year as we work together to understand who we are at the tumultuous end of this 100-year journey and who we need to be for the start of the next 100 years of service. Like all organizations, we have to evolve and we want to strengthen United Way Bay Area so that we can meet current and emerging community needs as we grapple together with ongoing crises, injustice, and inequities. So what's really essential to that are our volunteer leaders. Our volunteer leaders help us achieve our mission. They help us realize our vision. They help us live up to our values, and they help bring our strategic plan to life. At United Way Bay Area, we have a very strong focus on diversity, equity, inclusion, anti-racism, and belonging, and that's going to be integral to our path forward. This is embedded throughout our strategic plan, which I can't wait to share with you all in the next couple of weeks, which includes our volunteer leadership. So as such, we're looking for candidates for both our board of directors and our advisory council who can help us better reflect the full ranges of experiences, perspectives, and demographics of our 8-county region. And as we do this, we're focused on rebuilding for equity, which means we're not just looking to add seats to our table, but we want to rebuild the table. It's one of the systems that we think about that needs changing in order to guide our work. So with that, to say more about how our volunteer leadership support works at United Way Bay Area and how we support each other, I'm going to hand it back to our governance committee chair, Michelle Branch. Go ahead, Michelle.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much, Kevin. And one of the really exciting things about United Way Bay Area is Kevin and his leadership and his conviction and the work that we're doing. It's really been an honor and pleasure to work with Kevin as well. So thank you, Kevin, and thanks for your partnership as we're looking to really build out our board and build out our advisory council to help create a better Bay Area. So I really appreciate you. I want you to know that. So let's talk more about United Way Bay Area's volunteer leadership structure. It's primarily structured into 2 groups, which are supported by several committees. So first, the board of directors. The board of directors focuses on governance, fiduciary duties, and overall strategy for the organization. And then second, we have the advisory council, which is a group of United Way Bay Area stakeholders who represent the communities we serve by providing input for the organization's programs and impact, increasing awareness, support for our work, and assisting with resource development. So we've got the fiduciary board of directors and the advisory council. And under each of those, there are different committees. So we'll say more in our upcoming discussion about both of those 2 groups and how the committee structures work. But I also want to make sure that everyone here has access to the detailed documents on our website that cover all of these groups and their responsibilities. So we will make sure to link them in the chat here. I don't know if that happens immediately, but I wanted to do that. So we'll link them in the chat here, and we'll include them in the follow-up email that everyone will receive after the discussion today. Okay, and finally, I want to encourage everyone to stick around until the end, as our panelists will be available in breakout rooms for any discussion you'd like to have with them directly. So now I'd like to introduce you to and bring on the other 2 panelists. Really excited to have them here as well, and you are all in for a treat. So I'd first like to introduce Anna Mok. Anna is a senior partner at Deloitte who currently serves as an advisory council member, but is also an emeritus member of our board of directors, where she served as our board chair. Next up is Jason Rodriguez, who is the vice president and head of the Worldwide Microsoft Alliance at Hewlett Packard. That sounds like Super Friends or something like that. So the Worldwide Microsoft Alliance at Hewlett Packard, and also a member of United Way Bay Area's Advisory Council. So thank you, Anna and Jason, for joining us here tonight to share your experience. So I'm actually now going to hand it back to Kevin, who has some questions for us on the panel. So again, thank you, everyone.
Great, great. Well, again, thank you, Anna, and thank you, Jason, for joining us today. And I'm so excited I get to ask you guys questions, not as the CEO, at board meetings and advisory council. I mean, you guys are always asking me questions, putting me on the hot seat. So I get to put you guys on the hot seat. No, I'm kidding about that. But I do have some questions for all of you. And then, as Michelle said, we'll have time to get some questions, field some questions from folks who are here who are interested in learning more about our volunteer leadership. But the question I wanted to start off with, and it's going to be for everyone, is what inspired you to join United Way Bay Area as a volunteer leader? Anna, if you don't mind, we'll start with you, and then we'll go to Jason and then Michelle.
Great. Good evening, everyone, and thank you all for just taking the time to learn more about United Way. I think we are all here because United Way has a special place in our hearts and our lives, and that's why I'm a volunteer. I actually didn't know much about United Way when I started my career at Deloitte, except that we had these employee campaigns where we were asked to donate through the workforce campaign. So like all good employees at that time, decades ago, I committed to do that. And every week, a few dollars would come out of my paycheck into United Way. And I knew it was going into the community locally, and it was going to the different nonprofits that was part of the United Way mission. And as I continued my journey in my own development, and I actually started wanting to volunteer more in the community, I started learning more about United Way. And I first becoming a donor, joining various committees at that time. And then at some point in time, someone on the board had invited me, one of Michelle's predecessors had invited me to join the board. And so that led me on a whole different path in terms of even getting deeper in the work of United Way. But the why of why I continue now decades later to be involved in United Way is really tied to what Kevin said, that it's always been an organization that has really focused on the root cause. So much happens in society, and it's so easy for us sometimes to just take the pain away right now, but that doesn't really solve for the bigger societal issues. And what I respect most about our mission, and that aspect of our mission has not changed, is us wanting to do the deeper, harder work that's sometimes harder to measure impact on. So that's why I continue to serve in whatever capacity and donate to United Way as I have.
Thanks, Anna. Jason, do you want to go next? Next question, same question.
Yeah, sure. Same. Just thank you everybody for joining this evening. It's great to see this large of a group joining. So the passion for commitment to the community is great. First of all, I don't know that I feel like I had a choice about whether I was going to join. Kevin is a longtime friend, so when he asked, I didn't think it was an ask. It was told no. But all kidding aside, there, I certainly I feel like United Way Bay Area is very fortunate to have Kevin's leadership. So when he went over there, we've been friends and have worked together in previous capacities when he was at the Housing Trust and other places, and so I admire the work that he's done. So that in and of itself was really easy when he approached. And then second, just the legacy of what United Way does as a convener and the role that it plays to, really to tackle some pretty critical issues, especially when we talk about things like, housing, homelessness, and dealing with basic needs. I've been with HP for 20 years, so we also used to be part of the United Way campaigns back then, and I would contribute then, and it's great to be engaged and involved now. So I'll try and keep it short and sweet to that, but it to me was like a no-brainer given the role that United Way plays, and with the stellar leadership from Kevin and his team, as well as the rest of the board to join.
Thanks, Jason. Michelle, anything you want to add on that?
Yeah, sure. So I think a lot of you probably know a lot about United Way Bay Area, but it's also possible that there are people who are part of other organizations, who are here who want to learn, more about us more deeply. For me, what attracted me initially to United Way Bay Area was the staff, and we all are on board with the mission. But what I really liked is I had been part of a number of all volunteer orgs or organizations that were mostly driven by volunteer leadership. And I like the idea of being able to partner with staff and actually have staff led and have, staff driven data, information, research, knowledge, solutions to problems, because we can talk a lot about, kind of what we think the answers are to issues, but to actually have a staff who's trained and educated and who thinks deeply and makes the, the day-to-day and lifetime connections to understand the issues, I thought was really important. So that's actually why I actually have really enjoyed, and that's why I've stayed. I really enjoyed working with the staff. I learned so much from working with people and also partnering with them as well. Also, I have really enjoyed my experiences with regard to public policy and advocacy, and the opportunity to go to Sacramento and Washington, D.C. to partner with our staff and work with staff to advocate on the issues that we really care about, so that we can actually move the needle on many issues. So I really appreciate the opportunity to do that as well. As a volunteer leader, our voices do matter when we, show up and talk with elected representatives. And so I've enjoyed that opportunity as well. So I'll stop there. But yeah, I love the organization and been involved for almost 12 years now.
Yeah, thank you all for that. Thank for all of you guys for making that initial decision to join UWBA. So maybe just following up on that, I'm curious what factors you personally consider when you're joining a board, a council, or a committee, because this might be helpful to some of the people watching who are considering joining or nominating, being nominated to join WBA as a volunteer leader. So what factors do you consider when you're deciding to join a board? And I'll just open it up to any of you who want to answer that.
Happy to jump in. I'll just say, I think it probably starts with a few different things. Is there a personal alignment, right? To my values, what I'm personally passionate about, what my family, what we're really engaged and focused on from a philanthropic or service standpoint. And then I think looking at can I make a contribution, right? Is there something that I can add that the board and the organization feels that it needs, right? On there, is it because some competency that I bring, a certain network, those types of things? Then I, that also really matters a lot. And then is there a good fit with me and the rest of the board members and the ED? I mean, those very, very practical things. And I think if there's those things, and then final one, does it fit within, my ability to actually be a strong contributing board member, right? So that I can not just be on the, masthead or the website, but actually be a good contributing member. Those are the big things that I look at, so that, to make sure that I try and show up well across those dimensions.
I would echo many of the things Jason said. First and foremost, as I mentioned earlier, it's really the mission of the organization. And do I feel really connected to that mission and excited about it? Because it's going to be nights and weekends, and on top of my day job, that this commitment is going to take the time from, right? And so I have to be really excited about that, and be able to and willing to give that organization my all. So that's first and foremost. Second is, I would say, the culture of the organization, and Jason alluded to that, right? It's tied to how is the organization run, the values of its operation, right? Is it a chaotic place? And is that what I'm looking for at that point in life? Is it entrepreneurial in terms of how it seeds ideas? How does it engage the community and the volunteers? Michelle mentioned the staff and the board and the volunteer dynamics. That's really important, right? I'm personally usually the type of person that likes to join a board, and I like to do a lot. So while I've done lots of boards over my career, I'm also making sure that I'm able to give it a lot. I'm not interested in just putting my name on a letterhead, even if it's prestigious, because I want to be able to leave that board and know that I made a difference, big or small. So not all organizations and not all boards allow for that, right? Some boards are purely about fundraising, and they're very clear about that. And that's great. Certain times in my career and certain times in my life, that's all I can do is help fundraise. But other times I want to do something a little bit more impacted in a different way. And so I think it's really important to understand what the needs of the organization is and the fit you have at any point in time of how you want to contribute.
And do you mind, can I just follow up with you on that? So, you know, you have a real unique combination of experiences with United Way Bay Area. You served in the past as our board chair. Thank you very much for that. As a board member, and now you're currently a member of our advisory council. Could you talk about how you compare your experiences in those different roles? I think a lot of people might still be interested in what's the different type of service or perspective you're bringing when you're on the board and now when you're on the advisory council.
I would say there's a lot of differences for different reasons. One, when I was on the board, United Way was at a different place than it is now. So the organization is different. And we went through things like a merger between Silicon Valley and San Francisco Bay Area when I was on the board and board chair. So that was a lot of work. We went through a whole relationship with United Way worldwide that we were shifting that model. So that work is very different. On the actual governing board, it is actually a legal obligation, right? That you're actually voting on things that have legal ramifications for the organization, whether making financial decision, whether approving a merger, approving a big contract, hiring the CEO, right, and evaluating the CEO. So that type of work is quite different than an advisory board, at least the way we have it structured now, right? There's a few things that, at least me personally, I'm focused on is one, expanding the reach and the relationships for United Way. I'm involved in the fundraising for United Way, right, through our Tocqueville Society works, and that was one of the things I committed to. So it can be more specific in limited areas. And I think on the advisory board, I'm able to pick and choose a little bit more about the area of impact I want to make. And I don't have that legal and governing responsibility. So I would say the lift is a little bit less, but I would say the commitment level is the same. I just have to express it in a different way between those different roles. One of the things, and Michelle mentioned her 12 years with the organization, one of the things I really have enjoyed about my other boards, but also United Way, is I'm able to grow also in my role as a board member and advisory board member, right? It's not only about what I bring to the organization, but I've actually learned a lot because of the different transactions we've had to do, the different decisions, the different issues that the board needed to deal with in terms of our strategic planning. So I've learned a lot more about my community here in the Bay Area as a result of being on the board than if I weren't, and that I'm very grateful for.
Thanks, Anna. Michelle, as our governance committee chair, what advice would you give to someone who's considering UWBA as a volunteer leader?
Sure. There are a few different ways to answer that question. How would one present oneself? But I actually want to tag on to, some of the things that Anna talked about, which I thought were, really insightful, which is, she's really, I'm enjoying hearing her reflect on her experiences with the United Way Bay Area, as having been the board chair and having been on the advisory council. So I don't want to offer up Anna necessarily because I know she's really busy, but I do think that it would be great to, if you're considering, reach out to other volunteer leaders and other people who have experience with the organization to learn more about, what they enjoyed about the experience, what they didn't enjoy, to hear some of their reflections. How would they make the most of the opportunity if they were going to start from the beginning? How do they see the organization shifting and changing? So I think that would be interesting, actually, is to hear from others who have been in similar positions, and they can get a sense, or you could get a sense of, what that experience would be like, and listen for some of the things that would actually resonate with you. The other thing I would think about is, what are the things that you would like to do? Now, of course, when you join an organization, especially as, a volunteer, even though you're a leader, you're working collaboratively. So that's important. So it's unlikely you're going to come in and say, I want to do these 3 things. And, I'm just going to push them through, because you're not really in an operational role in that sense. However, it is still important to think about what are the things that you would like to accomplish and why you're joining. So what are like the top 3 strategic things that you would like to do or like to accomplish, and how can you get engaged with the organization around that? Because I think oftentimes, people can join a board. I'll speak for myself because I've joined a lot of boards, and sometimes there's so much stuff to do and so many things to think about and so many things to learn. You can lose sight of maybe why you join, and that might be okay if you're moving to something different that you're excited about. But there may be some things that you joined specifically to accomplish, and that you wanted to see through, and some initiatives that you really wanted to lend yourself to. And I think it's important to kind of lay those out for yourself at the beginning in terms of what you'd like to accomplish, and not to forget that.
Well, that's great. I think it's sort of natural to ask, go to Jason next. Jason, you're the newest member of our volunteer leadership team, especially on this panel. So you joined the advisory council last year, maybe it was the end of 2020. So can you tell us more about your experience so far as an advisory council member? What have you found the most interesting? Is there been any challenges that you've had to navigate?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, certainly. So I would say thus far, the challenges are like good challenges, which is trying to get my arms fully around everything that the United Way Bay Area does, right? Like there, you come in, or at least I did. I was thinking United Way Bay Area is this, but then you start like lifting up rocks, and you're like, no, but they do this, and we do this, and we're a convener for this, and we're like the go-to agency in this part of the Bay Area. So the number of things that the United Way Bay Area does is pretty expansive. So just trying to get my arms fully around that. Like I said, it's a little bit of a good problem, but it's definitely trying to understand all of that. I think the 4 things that you summarized on, like, what I really enjoyed is, those 4 different areas that you talked about, and really how you think about what you do around your own programming and policy. My background was, I worked in politics in government and run government relations at HP for a number of years. And then, so coming over here and getting to be involved in thinking about how policy, plays a big role in addressing and impacting some of the things that we care a lot about has been great. And then I would just say, I live in San Jose, and I will say sometimes I'm like, San Jose parochial. This gives me a broader perspective, things about what's happening around the broader Bay Area, how we can be, we need to be interconnected. What are the things that we need to take on regionally? So I've really appreciated that perspective from the other board members, but also the leadership role that United Way Bay Area takes on as a whole.
Great, thanks, Jason. So, as I mentioned at the beginning of the discussion, with the release of our new strategic plan, which will be coming out in the next couple of weeks, United Way Bay Area is recommitting publicly to the values of diversity and equity and inclusion, taking a really deliberate approach to our internal and external practices around institutional racism, bias, ethnic discrimination. I'll just say, people will see this when we release our strategic plan. In our appendix of the strategic plan, there's our whole DEI action plan that had 55 recommendations for what we should be doing as an organization that we developed as a staff, as a DEI council, with our consultants, and we are incorporating nearly all of them into our strategic plan. And again, being public about it. The specific part of it that's really helping to that we're thinking about, given that we're talking about volunteer leadership, is I'm just going to read this from our DEI action plan as a recommendation, is to diversify the UWBA board, advisory council, leadership team, and staff, prioritizing equitable representation at all levels of the organization from communities who have been the most historically, persistently, and racially marginalized in the Bay Area, while secondarily considering the value of equitable racial representation in staff and leadership among all racial groups in the Bay Area. So that's what's driving the foundational work that we're doing as we're thinking about how do we create new tables, not just add seats to our existing tables. So I'm curious what you all think as board or advisory council members. What's the role of volunteer leaders in supporting this commitment and helping hold United Way Bay Area accountable? And feel free to share any progress you've seen during your time here at United Way Bay Area. I'll sort of open it up to anyone who, if any of you guys would like to talk on this. Jason, I know you just went with the last question, but if you feel like going, or
I'm happy to kick off. I mean, I don't have the long historical from the board, but I do know kind of history of United Way Bay Area, or United Way, and then when it became United Way Bay Area, and to see to where it's come to now, and the real commitment, the amount of time we spent as a board focused on the topic, discussing it, how we're trying to drive that through the organization, staff, and others. It's quite apparent to me the priority that it takes. So like that, to me, that's goodness that's occurring, and I think it, for me, it will be like kind of where I can play a role and really help to continue to advance that in terms of the strategic plan for the board overall on meeting those different objectives. But I've seen that clearly in terms of the commitment, from the org and staff, and the way we, again, have the discussions. And I also oftentimes think too, just the amount of time that, as a board, when we apportion time of an agenda to certain topics like that also, and then where you kind of, put in resources that reflects your priorities. And I certainly see those being reflected. Probably more work to be done, but good progress thus far.
Yeah, I would say, Kevin, and for those of you that have been involved in United Way, hopefully you experienced that we've always had a commitment to DEI. So at the board level, when I was the NomGov chair, nominating chair, or the board chair, we always talked about, looked at the diversity of our board. And we talked about our programs, but I think what we will see in this new strategic plan is even a higher accountability, right? A higher way to measure it, and also measure it beyond things like just the board, but look at it programmatically in the words that Kevin said. So for that, I'm actually quite proud of, and I think I firmly believe if we don't assert it, and we don't really evaluate our progress against it, it will be too easy to not make progress, or make progress at such a slow pace. So us taking a leadership role and asserting it publicly will hold all of us accountable, right? Not only the staff, but the board and the advisory council accountable to make sure that is one of our stated parts of our strategy. And success good has to include that. Right, we can't do well on everything else and do poorly on that. And so I think that's going to be very important as a way that we model to the community that. And so this whole discussion on increasing our board size, when I was board chair, we actually had a much larger board. And for various reasons, and Michelle was on my board at that time, and we shrunk the board for a set of reasons. Part of it was for us to make decisions faster, right? Because we were going through a period of change around our strategy and other changes in management. But definitely, I think our desire to make sure that we can actually not increase the board to allow for it and make sure we are bringing in more voices to the boardroom and our advisory committee are really indicators of our commitment for what Kevin just mentioned.
Yeah, and if I could answer that question as well, I agree with everything that's been said. And, you know, we serve a diverse Bay Area, and the people we serve have so many different experiences. And what I like about the strategic plan is that it's explicit about the role of diversity and the role of race in particular in its impact on experience and outcomes in the areas of education, income, health, housing, and where we serve. And I think that's really important to make explicit, and that really hasn't, it's been understood, but not made explicit in the ways that I think are really critical as, you know, our society and our understandings of society are changing. We've had a major collective responses and change, you know, in 2020, after the death of George Floyd. You can go on about that, but I think we've all kind of experienced how in the United States, we are talking about representation differently. And so I'm really proud to see that our strategic plan takes that into account and reflects that, and that we're looking to be a leader in this area. So I think that's really critical. So representation matters, and I'm really glad we've been so explicit and intentional about the diverse representation that's needed in order for our volunteer leadership structures to function more effectively. Again, it's really critical that we continually reach out to the greater Bay Area community in new ways beyond traditional channels to attract more diverse leadership. And that as we welcome these new leaders into our meetings, it's also really critical for us to maintain or create an environment where everyone's experiences are valued and where everyone belongs. And I actually think the reason I also say create is because I think that it is continual work that we will need to do as our understandings of one another and our experiences change, to be respectful of people and to really appreciate the assets that diverse people are bringing to the table.
Well, thanks all of you guys for your thoughts on that. It is really foundational to the work that we do, to the volunteer leadership, and to where and how we're going to have the most impact in the community. I'm going to take one of the questions that's in chat right now. Gabriella asked, she's curious to hear from previous and current advisory council members, what projects have you supported or been involved with at UWBA? Anybody want to give an example of either project or volunteer work that you've been involved with through your time at UWBA?
I'll start. There's been so many, but one of the things I think, and I'll commend Kevin on that, he's been really effective at using our advisory council. So he'll convene us a few times a year and really throw topics and issues for us to deliberate and input into. So the strategic plan was one of them, right? You know, the discussion of how we can focus on the housing issue as part of our broader poverty mandate was another topic. And then a topic that he and I and a few other have engaged in is around this discussion when all of the anti-Asian hate crimes started really coming to be in 2020. We had a lot of conversations talking about how can we make sure that we are touching the community and figure out ways to support the other community organizations that we're doing on the grounds work, as an example of some of the things that at least I've personally worked on in the recent year or two.
Thanks, Anna. Michelle, do you want to talk at all like about the Public Policy Committee and how you guys get involved for that and things that you guys have championed?
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's a few things that I've worked on. Yeah, one of the things I'm really proud of is the work that I've done with our public policy team, and also with the Women United group as well. I've been around for a little bit. So with public policy in particular, we've done work where we've gone to Washington, D.C. We've spent time going to Sacramento. A lot of that work has been engaging women in the Bay Area in issues of public policy and thinking about issues relating to healthcare for all, dental care for all, childcare, earned income tax credits, and making sure that those are increased for our most vulnerable people. Also with public policy, we've done a lot of work around supporting housing and homelessness as well, and really championing that. So I'm talking really broadly. I'm not getting into specific legislation, but just at a high level, there are a number of different issues that I've been involved in and we've been involved with. And it's actually been a lot of fun in terms of, meeting our legislators and elected officials, kind of learning about their priorities and interests, getting more educated about issues and being able to share those issues and thoughts about those with friends and family. I think it's really important to be involved in understanding what's happening locally if we really want to make some kind of change and feel like we're a part of the community. So I think that's really critical. So that's been important to me. And I see some people here that I've worked with. So hello to you. You know who you are.
Well, that's a good sort of segue to a question I was thinking of, which was, there's a lot that all of you contribute to the community through working with United Way Bay Area. But anybody want to share what you get back in return from your investment in time in volunteer leadership? What do you guys feel like you get back from being involved? Anybody can answer this one.
I've made a lot of friends and have had a lot of just really nice experiences with people, getting to know them, having lunch or dinner, or again, like I often talk about traveling to Sacramento. That's actually been really fun, just, commuting in a car and learning about people on the way to Sacramento as we're, thinking about the issues that we want to represent, and just learning about the lives of other people who are impacted by United Way Bay Area. We also have people here tonight who are Spark Point ambassadors, and that's been great to learn more about their lived experiences as well, and the impact that United Way Bay Area has, and how they'd like to help impact and improve United Way Bay Area as well.
I'll pick up on Michelle's last point. I think that it's helped me be less insular and really have a broader and deeper understanding of my community, in addition to these lifelong friendships and relationships that Michelle talked about. I think one of the things unique about United Way is I know that my work and my impact is there even when I leave, because it is a stable organization that has these deep roots in the community. And so I know that whatever I'm doing and the time I'm putting into the organization, it's a building block, right? It supports the foundation, a building block for other work in the future. And so that, to me, I find that very rewarding and gratifying. And so I take away that as a gift from United Way.
I guess what I can add, Kevin, to that, again, as somebody who's I will still use relatively new, given some of the tenure of others. I don't know how long I can use that, but I will for as long as I can. Just say that, it's given me a broader perspective across the Bay Area. I might be myopic at times and just thinking about San Jose or my part of San Jose that I live in and the community, what needs to happen here. And this has helped me to expand the aperture to think about the broader Bay Area and have that discussion with, folks that are really committed to addressing those issues all up. I also will just say, I think we've got a lot of folks on here, and, whether they come and join the United Way board or United Way advisory board or some other committees or get engaged there, maybe Kevin, you might not want to hear it, but like folks, as they think about joining boards and getting engaged with different nonprofits, and if they're not on boards already, it's a great experience, and getting to do that. I've served on a number of boards for a number of years, from education to after school programming to, I'm also on the board of Goodwill, Silicon Valley. And, I think it allows me, given where I am in my career and what time I can give, to be able to feel like I'm having an impact and providing support in the community. I probably don't get to do all of the direct service things that I wish I had time to do, but getting to serve on the board allows me to do that. And then, the colleagues and the friendships are great that have developed over time with every board I've sat on, that as I think Michelle said, have become really good longtime friends that whether it's been with the executive director or my fellow board members or the staff, or even the folks that I've met through the programs and organizations themselves. So it probably is in certain ways maybe much too selfish in terms of the benefits and gains that I've received from being able to participate and serve on the different boards over the years.
Anna, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, Kevin, if you don't mind, I just wanted to add a comment. I know we've been focused and talking a little bit about the board and the advisory committee, but there's really a lot of different ways to engage with United Way. And I would say that's probably been the biggest shift in this last decade of United Way, right? Before it was really through donations and maybe a few committees, but now we have so many committees, we have spark points, we have ambassadors. There's so many ways to engage if you really wanted to volunteer. And I do think it's important actually to get to know an organization as much as you can before you actually commit, whether you know it through someone else and that's usually a very good way too. But it's good because it has to fit both ways, right? Because it is going to be a big commitment of your energy. I won't say always time, because that's each of us have a different judgment of time, but it will be a commitment of your energy. And so you want to be able to make sure it's a good match. And I know for me, it's been a fabulous match for a long time, and will continue to be as relates to United Way. And I hope many of you will experience the same.
That's really appreciate you saying that, Anna, and thinking about all the different ways that somebody can get involved. The goal is to grow our board of directors right now from 9 to 13 to 15 people, from our advisory council from 20 to 40 over the next 2 years. And we have a lot of people interested. So luckily there's other ways for people to also be involved, like you mentioned, joining a committee of the board, like advancement or public policy, volunteering at Spark Point, joining our emerging leaders council. I see a couple people that are here as participants are on our emerging leaders council, our Women's United Council. So, if you have the ability to give, then we have the Tocqueville Society too, which always is an important way to participate. So really quick before we just open it up to more questions from the audience, if what we've shared tonight has inspired someone listening to want to become interested in joining our board or advisory council, Michelle, what should they do next?
Well, Kevin,
put you on the spot.
No, it's okay. I'm prepared. Well, Kevin, it's really simple. It's as simple as going to uwba.org/nominate. That is uwba.org/nominate. And it looks like Robert just added it here to the chat, which is awesome. You're going to find details, including the nomination form. And once you submit the nomination form, we'll follow up with you in the coming weeks. And if it looks like a good match, we will reach out to you and schedule a time to meet with you. And we're really looking to meet a lot of people. So please, if you're interested, yeah, please nominate yourself and others maybe who you know who would be good, who couldn't be there, who couldn't be here with us today.
Awesome. Yes, that's and as Michelle said, we invite people to nominate themselves as well as thinking of other folks too. So looking at time, I wanted to see if other people in the audience, if you have a question that you'd like to ask the entire panel or everyone, feel free to go ahead and either use the raise hand function or put it into Q&A. We will be, after we wrap up, if there's any questions for the whole group, we'll open up breakout rooms, and each of us on the panel will be in one of those breakout rooms. If you want to ask your question one-on-one, or you want to ask follow up with any one of us, we'll have that available too. So I'll just give it a second or so. So I see a couple questions. Misha, I see your questions about donations and donation goals for UWBA. I'll see if anybody on staff can address that question. And Jennifer, you're from Bay Area Housing Corporation. Is there an organization in the Bay Area that works with nonprofits to match individual companies with the organization in the Bay Area that works with nonprofits to match individual companies with the organization? If you're asking how individual companies get involved with the United Way Bay Area, that's the work of, it is part of the work that our volunteer leaders help us with. Many of the people on our board and on our advisory council help build that relationship between United Way Bay Area and either their workplace, as a funder or supporter, or as a nonprofit leader who's bringing your perspectives, working on a particular issue or working in a particular community to the board and to the advisory council, so that we can better, so that our programs and initiatives can have better impact. If that wasn't exactly what you're asking, you can feel free to unmute yourself and ask the question.
Yes, hi, that's me.
Hi,
as I said, I'm with Bay Area Housing Corporation, and what I'm inquiring about is, I'm actually from LA, and there are organizations that are here, a few, that help nonprofits match themselves with individuals who might be good matches for their board. So I'm looking more from the agency saying, okay, we need to recruit board members for our organization. Do you have one like that up in the Bay Area?
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely seen some nonprofits do board match. Actually, maybe that's the name of the nonprofit, board match. That's one. And then there's also great organizations here in the Bay Area that do board trainings. If you're interested in getting involved with a board, like the Hispanic Foundation of Silicon Valley does a Latino board leadership academy. It's run, it's great partners. And then, the senior fellows who graduate out of it are then matched with boards too. I will say, if you've not been on a board or advisory council before, please still feel free to nominate yourself. I mean, everybody's joined a board for the first time somewhere. And if you're new to board leadership, it's not a disqualifier from being involved with us. We'll make sure that you're partnered up with another board member or advisory council as a mentor. Having a successful board doesn't stop with recruitment. It continues with orientation, with keeping people engaged, with training, the whole life cycle. And that's really important to us too.
Well, what I find is I've been a board member before on several organizations, but right now, I'm working as a consultant. But I guess what I'm saying is, I think that most of the organizations that I have encountered here and to some extent in the Bay Area are looking for good board members that match their cause and their interest. And of course, they're also looking for people to help them raise money. And then of course, they're also looking for people of color who can serve on their boards, and and also diversity, equity, inclusion. So there's a lot of requirements, sometimes.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure, it's the same down here. It's the same down here in LA. It's no different.
I'm just going to add and echo, if I can, and endorse what Kevin. I certainly know the Hispanic Foundation of Silicon Valley, as he mentioned, has a board kind of development process. So they bring in a cohort of folks that are interested in serving on board, may have not served on boards ever before, and then they kind of take them through kind of a series of classes to prepare them to serve on boards. I believe Latina Coalition has something similar up here as well. I know the San Jose Silicon Valley Chamber used to have a similar program. I don't know if they still do, but those are three. So if you're looking for it, and then Kev, I don't know, does the Council of Nonprofits still do that too? They might also be another resource. So I think there are a number to look into, tap into, along with Board Match that got put into the
Right.
chapter. So I think if you're looking for folks, those are some good resources. Plus, there's any number of other organizations that are kind of convener organizations as well that probably are good resources for finding board members.
Yeah,
great. Thank you.
Thanks, Jason.
And I would say, I commented to Kevin and Michelle, I think United Way is quite unique in doing this more open process right now. And we hope this will become a best practice, as most boards, nonprofit and for-profit boards, right? Usually it comes through referrals that people we know, so we get to kind of the networks, right? So if your board isn't diverse, then the people that are referred in aren't going to be as diverse, right? So this is really a way to continue, even though our board is relatively diverse, to make sure we are pushing and that we're not, I'll call biased in any way, right? So being able to do the outreach so people can self-nominate, and whether it's to be on the board or the advisory council now or later, it's really to start that relationship building, right, around the journey of working together for a period of time. And so I think, thank you, Kevin. I commented to you that that just implementing something like this is bold, because I don't think any of the boards I'm on has such an open process where people can really self-nominate into the organization, at least none of the larger ones.
Thanks, Anna. And I will say, I want to give credit to other nonprofits. I'm a member of East Bay Housing Organizations, a supporter of that organization. And it was in talking with my friend who's the ED there, Gloria Bruce, I saw East Bay Housing Organizations have the sort of open process like that. And that was part of the inspiration for what I thought we could try here at United Way Bay Area. So one of the important things around board leadership and volunteer leadership here is we respect people's time and we stay on point, and we're 1 minute over 6:30. We're not leaving. We're going to move into the breakout sessions. And I'll say before I hand this back to Michelle to wrap up and lead us in there is that we know that there are some questions in the chat that we didn't get a chance to answer to everyone. But as a follow-up, we'll be having an FAQ that we'll go at, and we'll try to capture as many of those questions and make it available for everyone. So thanks to the panelists, and I'll turn this back to Michelle.
Oh, great. Thank you, Kevin. I've also been answering some chats just privately that people have been asking me about the process as well. But thank you so much, Kevin. We really appreciate all of your insight. And thank you to our panelists as well. I really enjoyed hearing your reflections and insights and advice, which I'll probably take some of it. So I would love a round of applause for our panelists, actually. Thank you for being here. We really appreciate it. We are continuing to accept nominations with next steps, for those in process as appropriate. Again, Robert had shared the link in the chat, which is uwba.org/nominate. And we are now going to open it up to some small Zoom chat rooms where if you have further questions, feel free to let us know.